Hello and welcome to The Last Tackle. Plenty to talk about this week. It's the Betfred Challenge Cup this weekend. Eddie Hemmings, a former voice of Rugby League on Sky Sports. Sorry. And Paul Sculthorpe in the studio. Eddie, great to see you. Round 15 of the Betfred Super League. There's been loads to talk about as well, hasn't there?
What a fantastic season, Mark. You know, I mean, look at the top six for a start. I just wonder if I'd have come to you at the start of the season and said, I want £10 on Lee to be third, you know, and Salford to be fourth, and both of them within a whisker of getting to the Cup semi-final by round 15. What sort of odds would you have been able to give me? You know, it'd have been off the scale, but hasn't it been a breath of fresh air to see teams like that making it into the playoff positions? Warrington started like a house on fire. Catalan Dragons have taken over and come back again after a bit of a dip in form. Saints, you know, they're just in the top
six. Bit different from when he was sat here 4 weeks ago.
Slightly different, yeah, slightly. You know, I heard him say that this is it, you know, but no, they're going really, really well. And Leeds, not going to make the playoff this year. Not going to make it. Not going to make the top six. It's an amazing season. Just what we want.
And last time me and you did a show together, Scully, Hull KR were third, and they've slipped to seventh, 3 defeats on the bounce, and news that Jordan Abdul's going to be out for at least 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's a massive loss, isn't it, for Hull KR? He's one of the main men and was a big influence in that early, you know, fast start to the season. So yeah, wheels seem to have fallen off a bit for Hull KR, and they'll be looking to turn things around this week.
And some other news as well, and this is out of the Leeds Rhinos. Zane Titivano is set to have surgery after tests revealed he has a hole in the heart, which it caused him to have a stroke. He's expected to make a full recovery though and to return to action this season. So of course, on behalf of everyone, wish Zane a speedy recovery. But thank God, a full recovery, that's the most important. But even returning to action this season, it seems incredible, doesn't it?
It is. It's, I mean, such a shock to hear that news, and great that he's going to be well. And you know, it just shows the medical staff that we have in the game as well to obviously deal with it. You know, when it happened, and then obviously get him the care that is needed, and you know, hopefully, you know, see him back on the pitch, fully fit and healthy soon.
Right, before we talk about the Betfred Challenge Cup, let's look back at round 15. Let's start with the derby, of course, between St Helens and Wigan, the second meeting of the season, and Good Friday, the spoils went to Wigan. Before we ask him, completely biased opinion, look, that's 4 and a bounce in the Super League for Saints. They're only 4 points behind now with a game in hand. A very different position to what we were talking about last time I did a show with Scully about 4 weeks ago.
Indeed so, and they look like they are coming back and they're timing their run at just the right time. I thought they were magnificent at Magic. I thought they took it to an even bigger level, a greater level last week against Wigan. They didn't give Wigan a sniff, to be fair, and they've got some of the best stars in the competition. Jack Welsby, outstanding at fullback, and a Wigan lad, of course, which will really rankle the Wigan supporters. I've got a really good Wigan pal who always says how many Wiganers, ex-Wiganers, are in the Saints team and in all the other teams that are going well. But Jack Welsby, you know, fantastic. Lomax, brilliant. Makinson can't stop scoring, kicking goals, record point scorer in the Magic weekend. They are coming at just the right time. I remember talking to Eamon McManus earlier in the season. I said, do you regret now going to Australia and taking on Penrith? OK, you came back as world champions, but do you regret that now, the 55-hour flight return? He said, not at all. He said, we are now the world club champions. What a thing that is to have on our CV, on our records. He said, and we will come again. Don't worry about that. And I said, what about your coach? Is your coach safe? Because Paul Welland's first season in charge, he looked me straight in the eyes. He said, yes, absolutely. And I'm so pleased. And I would just love for Paul to go all the way and use Scully's phrase of get the drive for 5. Get the 5th. I'm sure it was him on Sky Sports at the weekend that said that.
I think Brian threw that in.
Well, you backed Paul Wellens throughout, didn't you?
Yeah. Fully 100,000,000% know what the man's about, know his coaching ability, know what a person he is, and obviously that's a big part of being a good coach, is your man management of your players. And 100% he's got the backing of the players. You know, there's going to be changes. He's going to infiltrate his own coaching philosophies, you know, make tweaks to what Christian Wolf did. And it takes time. And obviously, you know, we all know about the World Club Challenge game, and that is going to take some toll, you know, early on in the season. But you know, I think Saints, it was common knowledge. You know, I think they've had issues with discipline. Yeah. Maybe that's helped. You know, there's a lot of players missed a lot of games, and I think, you know, I know Wellows read the right act, and then players now look fresh. I thought Saints looked really, really sharp. They look quick. They look full of energy.
You've got a column in a local paper. You've spoken about Jack Welsby. That was his 100th appearance for Saints.
Yeah, I couldn't
he's only
believe,
22 years of age.
I couldn't believe it when I actually found out that it was his 100th game coming up. I mean, you know, at 22, you don't realise he's been around as long as he has, and what an impact he's had, and you know the things that he's done, the things that he's won already. You know, he's got the world at his feet. Jack, I've always known that about Jack. He's a natural player. I don't think he's a player that you need to really coach that much. There's a lot of things in his game he needs to work on. You know, unfortunately, as a fullback, you've got to catch bombs and you've got to make tackles as well. But he's you know, and the great thing with him, he's a great kid. He's got the work ethic. You know, he's got the attitude to put that work in and keep improving. And as I say, God knows where he could be.
How good is Jack Welsby?
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. For 22 years of age. I mean, he's lucky he's got some great professionals around him. He's got James Roby. Last season for him, what a way for him to go
He's
out.
playing well.
And he's playing as well as ever. And he looks like he could go on for another 10, 12 years. But I know he's said this is it, end of the road as far as he's concerned. But he's got some great professionals around him who give him the right sort of messages. You know, I mean, John Bennison, for instance, he has dropped out of the scene at the moment. You know, he's 18th man more often than not now. He had a fantastic start to the season as well at 19 years of age. They've got the lad from Barrow on the wing. He looks mustard, absolute mustard on wing. And he's got Makinson on the other wing who scores from 15 yards out and he's up in the air.
6 tries in the last 2,
It's just fantastic. I mean, listen, they are still the team to beat. Leeds won it twice from 5th. Don't write off the Saints. Who said that? Never write off the Saints. Never write off the Saints.
The 5th now, as we said, are only 4 points behind with a game in hand.
That's right. And the game in hand is against Huddersfield, who, on current form, you would expect them to beat. But when they're going to play that, the Lord alone knows, because they're on course for Wembley as well, the Saints. So that could come and bite them, that game in hand, I suppose. But no, Welsby, you know, and Lomax, you know, I can't understand why Johnny Lomax has never been the man of steel, because he's so consistent. Ever since he came into that side, he has been absolutely 100% committed and consistent. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Full of admiration for them.
Well, let's talk about Friday night's other games. Castleford 10, Salford 42. So Castle will be disappointed, won't they? They beat Leeds at Magic and they couldn't follow at home against Salford.
Yes, a massive disappointment for Castleford. After it looked like they turned the corner and they put a 6-point gap between themselves and Wakefield, the bottom of the table. Of course, that's now down to just 4 again. So the heat is on for Castleford and Wakefield to try and avoid relegation. But aren't Salford playing well? You know, we'll talk no doubt about Lee Leopards shortly as well. Those two and Hull Kingston Rovers, Hull KR have had their injury problems. That's why they're on a bit of a dip at the minute. But Salford, you know, Paul Rowley has got them playing some fantastic
300 bounce up to 4th.
I know. And as I say, who would have predicted this at the start of the year? Lee 3rd. Don't mention relegation now near Derek Beaumont, because he'll laugh at you in the face. You know, Lee 3rd, Salford 4th. Unbelievable. But just what the competition needs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Some new faces.
But to be fair to Derek, we said at the very start of the season he signed experience and thought he'd signed enough to make sure he wasn't in a relegation battle. Look, he's 3rd.
Yep, he spent a fortune. 2 million of his own money he's put in, and he's signed the players he thinks that are going to take them to the playoffs, and it's working. Lachlan Lamb, Canberra Raiders are after him now. You know, that makes me sick, actually. You know, they come over here and they set us alight, and then they want it back. But Lachlan Lamb, brilliant. Josh Charnley scoring tries for fun as well, and the hooker. Yeah, how good's he?
Pape, well, he was one of the best players in the World Cup for me as well. So I mean, for Derek to keep hold of him, you know, when
played the season last year, wasn't he, in Championship?
The world was looking at him. I think he's an outstanding player.
I'd love him
I
to
said
get
it
to
last
Wembley
week.
and see him in leopard suits, wouldn't you? He'll put them in leopard suits.
And he will do,
really
Derek, as
will.
well.
We're actually going to have a special show next week from the Lee Leopards. A special show next week, same time, but we're from the Lee Leopards next week. We're going to hear from Derek Bowman as well and some of the players, so make sure you tune in for that next week. Right, 8 wins in a row, not lost since Easter. They are third.
The Lee Leopards.
Yep.
Yeah. As you say, you know, the recruitment, I think, has been outstanding. You know, we've said it a couple of times on the show, haven't we? I think the whole leopard concept has captured everyone's imagination.
It's been a fun.
It's put Lee in the
everyone laughed at him.
spotlight. But
Yeah,
they've
they
backed
did at the time.
Everyone
fun
laughed
though,
at
isn't it?
Derek for what he was doing.
Yeah. But
And
they backed it
look
up
what
on
has
the...
happened.
They look foolish if they hadn't backed it up on the field. They backed it up on the field. They backed it up off the field. You know, with, you know, the razzmatazz that they put on at the stadium. They've put money. They've put thought into.
Attendances are good.
Tendencies are good. Lee's buzzing, and what more do you want? You know, when the team, but it starts and finishes with the team performance, and I think.
But does it?
You know,
now this is the thing. Does it moving forward? Because it's not necessarily about what happens on the field, according to IMG. It's about everything else that surrounds the club. Well, everything else that surrounds the club is fantastic at the Lee Leopards.
Everything around the club
And
is
on the
fantastic
field,
because
it's
the team
fantastic
are
as
winning.
well. Yeah, exactly.
The team are
I
performing.
said that to somebody from IMG not long ago. It's all well and good, all this. If you're not playing well on the field, they ain't going to come.
No.
You've got to get the field right, and then people will come.
We've got to, as a sport, look at the next group of players, the next talent pool of players. That is number one. You know, the pathways of players coming through, how we get more and better players.
Yep.
That for me is paramount in the sport. Yeah, we want, you know, the selling of it, you know, the commercialisation of it, the broadcasting, but you've got to have the quality on the field.
Steve-O
as well.
bangs on about this every week on our podcast. He said, we're looking at the top of the pyramid. He said, and the top of the iceberg. It's what's going on underneath. We've got to get the young kids playing again because the junior football has taken a dip because of the pandemic and everything else. Yeah. We've got to get that, and we've got to bring the youngsters through. We don't need all the time, surely, to go to Australia, New Zealand, and everywhere else and bring people over and give them a nice.
For me, it's the
pension.
opportunities to play. And I read a tweet before. I think it was something about Oldham, because I know I got tagged into it, and so did Barry Mack and Kev. And it was about return of town team football. Now, at the moment, the junior rugby, them players don't really have any goals to aim for other than to get in a scholarship and play professional. There's no town teams, there's no counties.
No.
You know, we need to bring that back. We need to give young players something to aim at.
Definitely they do. Absolutely they do. And we need reserve team football played on
100%,
a proper basis.
100%.
And a proper academy league. You know, if you're in Super League, if you're in the business, you should have an academy and you should have a reserve team.
A proper pathway.
Absolutely.
Proper pathway.
That's where you came through.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
Let's just go back to the Betfred Super League. Warrington, Huddersfield. Now, it's a big game for Warrington. They lost the last two. And obviously, we'll talk about Huddersfield in a moment. But how are things at Warrington? Because I know a lot of your mates are Warrington fans.
They are, yeah. And I live in the town. I mean, people think I'm a Warrington fan because I live in the town. I used to love Warrington doing well because I was 10 minutes away from the ground when I used to have to go to work on a Thursday and a Friday. I didn't have to go to Hull, which was fantastic, you know. 3 hours in the car there and 4.5 on the way back. Warrington started like a house on fire, didn't they? Then they came up against Wigan. Then they came up against Saints. And everyone's saying, they've come back again. And it was an important win for them against Huddersfield. I mean, I don't know what on earth has happened to Huddersfield. Yeah. I really don't. To see them where they are
One
in the
win
table,
in 6,
you just can't fathom that, can you? You cannot fathom. They were at Wembley this time last year.
They're in the playoffs.
And they got to the playoffs and they fell off the perch. Warrington are hanging on in there. You know, I've done a couple of functions in Warrington to raise money for various charities. And we get a couple of the players in and I say, well, is this going to be your year? It's off the conversation. They don't mention it. They are not allowed to mention this is our year. The fans do. They started off saying that for 8 weeks. They've gone a bit quiet now. We'll just wait and see. But they're hanging on.
The job Darryl Powell's doing.
Oh, fantastic. After last year, you know, he must have been in bits. And I thought, if he has a bad start to the season, the pressure really will be on. He had a great start to the season. And all the fans were saying, this is it. This is our year. and he's hanging on in there, and he's a great coach. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. What he did at Castleford, got them to league leaders in 2017, got them to the grand final. Brilliant, brilliant. Things happened off the field, and they had the wheels blown off them for the grand final. Darryl Power is a wonderful coach, and he will prevail at Warrington. They believe if they're in the mix, they will have a good say in what goes on at Old Trafford.
And talking about doing a great job, Catalans 38, Hull KR 4. I'll talk about Hull KR in a moment. But Catalans obviously had all sorts of injuries at the start of the season, at the top of the table.
Yes,
and looking a menace.
Yeah, they are looking a menace. It's a tough place to go. You know, I think Hull KR on current form are always up against it. You know, going to Catalan, but you know, you look at some of the players in that Catalan side. You know, led by Tompkins and Pearson, just some outstanding players and are real confident at the moment, and you can see that in their performances. And
Eddie, Jordan Abdul out for 12 weeks. We've mentioned that. 3 defeats on the bounce now for Hull KR, and Willie Peters admitted it's a tough period.
It is a tough time for them.
Because it started well.
It did start well, and Jordan Abdul was playing out of his skin, wasn't he? They'll miss him. If he's out for 12 weeks, that's virtually till the end of the regular season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether they can hang on in there without him, I don't know. But yeah, they have been playing some wonderful stuff. You know, almost like rolling the clock back. You know, Steve-O talked about runarounds and set moves and set patterns, and you know, and that they have with keep going on about it. Salford and Lee, they've set the competition alight this year. Their squad depth is going to be a problem for them. And if Jordan is out for 12 weeks, he'll be desperate to get back, I know. If he is out for 12 weeks, that could have a massive impact on the way they finish the season.
And finally...
And Lachlan Coote as well, I'm sorry, Mark. Lachlan Coote's got a big decision to make as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's already said he's retiring at the end of the season, and there is talk that he might go sooner because of all the concussions that he's had. And his health is more important than anything. But there's another superstar that they could lose.
And finally, Wakefield get their first win of the season. Obviously, Salabayo's got about 7-game ban.
Yeah.
But a great win for Wakefield to finally get off a mark.
Yeah, it was, and a big win, obviously, against Leeds as well, wasn't it? Yeah. I made up. Mark Applegarth is a good friend of mine. He's a great coach, great young coach. Obviously, there's a lot of responsibility on him taking the head coach's role. And you can't fault some of the efforts throughout the year from Wakefield, but the quality has not been there, and certainly on attack. You know, I think we speak about it week in, week out, don't we? I think it was 5 or 6 games this year where they didn't even score a point, but a massive win against Leeds, and we'll see how that now can kickstart their season. And you know, you line that with Castleford, you know, and some of the on-off form that they're showing, isn't there? You know,
Castle Wakefield vying for relegation.
Yeah, mid-August it'll be interesting to see where both teams are when they play each other.
Little postscript to that match at the weekend with Wakefield beating Leeds Rhinos. There is now serious questions, I'm told, being asked. Probably not by Gary Hetherington at Headingley, but there are serious questions being asked about the coaching philosophy of Rowan Smith at Leeds. He's got to be under pressure. Leeds don't get to the halfway point of the season usually and be in the position that they are now. They're 6 points off the playoffs.
But more worryingly, they're so inconsistent. I mean, that second half against Wigan, they were fantastic, weren't they, at Wigan? And then they've lost the last 3. Yeah.
They had 12 men.
And then they've lost the last 3.
You can't fathom it, can you?
How can
you come out against Wigan with
lost
12
to
men
Castleford and Wakefield
and boss the game the way they did against Wigan? He must be scratching his head, Rowan Smith, as the rest of us are, saying, what on earth is going on?
That's it. I always think that when, you know, how can you blame the coach when philosophies don't pretty much change week in, week out?
We don't blame players. You were never blamed.
We never lost.
You don't blame the ball.
But when you can turn in a performance like they did against Wigan and then turn in a performance like they did against Wakefield, when it's the same players, the players have got to take some responsibility.
Absolutely. Well, that takes care of round 15 in the Betfred Super League. Well done to Wakefield. There's plenty to come from a Sportsman, your home of Rugby League.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League,
the home of Rugby League online.
Subscribe for exclusive live games from the Betfred Women's Super League and Challenge Cup.
And your next game on the Sportsman is on Sunday, and it's in the Betfred Women's Challenge Cup. It's a quarter-final. It's quarter-final weekend in the men's and the women's competition. We've got Wigan Warriors versus Huddersfield Giants. That's at Robin Park as well. It's 11:30 kickoff live on the Sportsman on Sunday. And in a week on Saturday the 24th of June, we are bringing you some more wheelchair action. We've got London Roosters versus the Wigan Warriors. We've got Hull versus Warrington. And then at 4 o'clock on Saturday the 24th, we've got the repeat of last year's grand final, Leeds Rhinos versus the Halifax Panthers. So some cracking wheelchair rugby league on the Sportsman a week on Saturday. Right, let's talk the Challenge Cup then. It's going to be a fantastic competition. We're going to have the draw as well on Sunday for both the men and the women's competition. Right, Scully, you've won it as well, of course. What a weekend we have got for the Betfred Challenge Cup. Yeah,
it's going to be fantastic, isn't it? You know, the Challenge Cup is so historical within the game, and it'll be interesting watching these games as well, how sometimes you can get a complete different run of form away from Super League. It's a whole new competition. It's knockout football, and I think we've got 4 great games.
Well, let's kick off Hull KR versus Salford live and via play at 12 o'clock on Saturday. How do you see that one?
Yeah, I think on current form, you've got to fancy Salford. I just think they've been outstanding, led by that spine. You know, we keep talking about Braley, you know, Croft and Sneed, and they're playing some fantastic, attractive football, aren't they? They throw the ball about, clearly the way Paul Rowley coaches. And, you know, Hull KR, as you said, injuries at the moment, you know, they're doing it tough. They'll be looking to try and forget about that Super League form now and put all focus in on getting through to the semi-final.
Hull KR Salford.
Yeah, there should be a great crowd there, shouldn't there? Because, you know, two sides who haven't been to Wembley for some time, and if they get through this, they're one step away. You've got to fancy Salford the way they're playing. I mean, Paul's right. The Cup sometimes gives teams a bit of a lift, a bit of a kick. You say, well, forget what's gone on over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks. This is the challenge. This is a one-off. This is the Challenge Cup. This is our chance. And I'm sure it'll be a full... Well, they all will be. All will be full-blooded affairs, but you've got to fancy Salford the way they're going at the minute.
And then live on the BBC on Saturday afternoons, Hull FC versus St Helens. St Helens won the last 15 meetings against Hull.
And I think there'll be another one as well. I can't see anyone stopping them at the moment, the way they're playing. I mean, form is a bit like a bottle of pop, isn't it? 1 minute it's up there, and everything's going well, and the next minute it's flat as a pancake. But the way that Saints have suddenly started to play a bit, and they're going up there, I know they're going to Hull, and you know it's a tough old place to go. But haven't I read that Hull have got a few injury problems as well, so they're going to be a little bit depleted. I can't see beyond Saints at the minute. Sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if Saints turn in a performance of what they're capable of, I don't think Hull can live with them. Hull have been good and bad over the last couple of months. They've turned in some good performances and good
started
wins.
Really well, went on a poor run, come back, yeah, and then obviously, you know, go on the back of a loss to Lee at a weekend. So, yeah, I mean, on current form, I just think, you know, Saints go into this full of confidence on the back of a great win against Wigan. And we talk about your Wellesbys, your Lomaxes. I think all the Saints performances start from on the back of such a good go forward, and I think the pack is on fire at the moment. You know, Big Alex, Amati Lees, great to see Matautia back. Curtis Sirenen, for me, is playing really some outstanding football. And
new deal as well for him.
Yeah, I just think, you know, if they keep doing what they're doing, I just think there's nobody can live with that pack.
Sunday, cracker on the BBC, Wigan versus Warrington.
Yeah, big game.
Holders.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's two of the biggest names in Super League, and Wigan will be looking to bounce back with a performance. Whether they can do it, I don't know. I've really questioned this Wigan side. You know, I think some of the players are just not turning up and not performing. You know, they're at home. It's a Challenge Cup. You know, something that the club's synonymous with. But it's against, you know, a confident Warrington side. I'm going to go for Warrington.
Oh, my word. Yeah, well, I can see why you are. I mean, I think it's a season-defining match for both of these clubs. I really do. Wigan, as you say, the holders of the competition. They won it right on the bell last year, didn't they, against a plucky Huddersfield side, but they are the holders. I don't think that Matty Peet will want to give that trophy away easily. Warrington owe them one after what happened to them after the start of the season with their great run in Super League. So Warrington will go there and will, fingers crossed. It's at the DW.
Wigan won that hell well, didn't they? 13-16, played well.
Wigan might just have a little bit too much. That, you know, he'll look for a response, Matty Peet, from his players, and this is the ideal opportunity to do it. Wigan might have just a bit too much for Warrington, but it's a toss of the coin for me.
Then at 5 o'clock, York City Knights versus Lee Leopards. They met in the Championship playoff semi-final last year, and Lee won 70-10. Look, let's be honest, York up against it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a great occasion for the Championship.
It is a great occasion for York, you know, to be still in the quarterfinals, you know, coming from the Championship. But I think they're up against it, against one of the form teams in Super League, and Lee, and Lee won't let this slip. You know, an opportunity to get in the hat, you know, on the form that they're in, into a Challenge Cup semi-final. Place third in the Super League. It's, you know, we've already spoke about how, you know, what a high the club's on, and there's only one winner in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, poor old York, who's a pal of mine I see on the golf course every week. He's a York fanatic. Shouts from one tee to the other, "Go on, York! Go on, York!" I can't see them doing anything against Lee. And, you know, the last time Lee were at Wembley in the 70s, Alex Murphy took them, didn't he? It was 72, was it? 72, round about then. Lee are going to be third in the table on Sunday night in the Betfred Super League table, and they're going to be 80 minutes away from the Betfred Challenge Cup final. Adrian Lamb, after all his trial and tribulation he had at Wigan, Adrian Lamb, at the moment, has got to be a candidate for Coach of the Year, hasn't he? Or is Derek Beaumont candidate for Owner of the Year, because he's lobbed the money in and Adrian has done the business for him.
And doing a great job. Right, talking about lobbing the money in, back these riders. It's the Le Tour de Rugby League Cares. It's a 500-mile cycle across France, starting in Biarritz, and they're going all the way to near Perpignan. It's 6 days of torture, and one of our regulars is doing it, Adrian Morley.
Whenever you're ready.
One take Marley to call me, Harry.
Okay. Adrian, thanks for talking to the Sportsman. Tell us a bit, first of all, about Rugby League Cares and why you're doing this ride.
So Rugby League Cares is the official charity of Rugby League. So anyone who's been involved with Rugby League, from community level to professional level, present players, past players, anyone who's struggling, you know, whether it be financially or in any way, emotionally, or so Rugby League Cares is a helping hand. They do a lot of work for players just finishing, you know, giving help, career guidance, things like that. So it's a charity, obviously very close to my heart, being involved with the sport for 30 years, and that's why I'm doing it. And yeah, really proud of that fact.
And for those of us that watch on and watch you giants of the game, you know, in action, it's something for us to contribute to say thank you for what you've done.
Oh no, yeah, that's great. I mean, if I can help it in any way, I'm more than happy to do that. And there's a couple of ex-players who normally get involved in these challenges, and you know, delighted to put my hand up and do my bit. You know, it is a challenge. It's very grueling, but you know, if it's not challenging, then it won't be worth donating for.
And what's the ride been like so far?
Very tough. The first day we did over 90 miles, a lot of hills. The guy who organised it, John Ledger, is a bit of a psychopath when it comes to planning the route. So very tough first day, but we thought that was the hard one out of the way, but it wasn't. The second day we took on the Tourmalet, which is a Tour de France route. So it's 11 miles of just climbing, which was it was hard going. We did a full morning shift, and then we had to take that on. It was only 73 mile in the day, but there was 10,000 feet of climbing, which was quite horrendous, really. Yesterday was again, it was about 77 miles, and that was the Col d'Aspin, which is another famous routes, and that was only 8 miles of climbing. So it's been challenging, but we're halfway through now. We're just about to set off for day 4. I think it's about 90 miles today. We're going through Toulouse, Carcassonne, ending up in Perpignan, which is obviously all the famous French rugby league towns, which is great.
How does this compare to sticking your head in a million scrums?
Very different. I mean, I was never a keen cyclist before these challenges, but it's great. You know, jumping on a bike. It's as hard as it is, because the days are very long. It's easier than you know, running a marathon, because the impact on your knees. But when you get a great bunch of guys like this, it does make it easier. But it is very tough. But as I say, if it's not tough and grueling, people wouldn't contribute.
Perfect out.
Yeah, good luck to Adrian Morley and everyone doing that, and your mate and Sky, former Sky colleague Neville Smith was doing it and asking the questions.
Taught him everything he knows, Mark. You know, I tell you what, he does the pictures, he directs the pictures, he does the production, he points the camera, and now he's doing the interviews. And
he's raising lots of money for Rugby League Cares.
Yeah,
and
good on him.
Obviously, I know you do quite a lot with Rugby League Cares as well. Brilliant organisation.
They are a brilliant organisation for, you know, for current and past players. You know, do a number of things to help people, and great to see my old mate Moz there. You wouldn't want to be that bike, would you? It's a big old lump, isn't it?
The wheels will be buckling underneath him.
Right, final question each. Who wins the Betfred Challenge Cup then? Who wins it? Who's going to be celebrating come Saturday the 12th of August?
Well, I've been banging the drum for St Helens all day, haven't I? So I suppose I've got to say St Helens. I wouldn't write Wigan out of it. I wouldn't write Warrington necessarily out of it. It's between those 3 for me, but I can't see beyond St Helens at this moment in time for anything.
I'm going for a Saints-Lee final.
Saints-Lee?
Saints-Lee.
Love it. I want to see them in the leopard suit. I really do. I want to see them in the leopard suit.
And as well, thanks for joining us, fellas. And as well, the women, they'll be playing their final on that day as well. And don't forget, we're bringing you the quarter-final. Wigan versus Huddersfield, 11:30 kick-off on Sunday. Thanks to Eddie and Scully, and thanks for watching.